Hi all, this is the MakeHaven badging video for the spindle sander here at MakeHaven. So the spindle sander has this spindle of sandpaper that is coming up, and it's used for sanding interior radii, so corners that would be hard to get to using normal sandpaper. We have a bunch of different size spindles that can go in here, so I'm going to show you how to swap those out, and we're going to do a brief demonstration. It's not a very complicated tool, so this will be a quick video. So if you come a little closer, you can see that this table insert pops out. We have 3 different sizes, so bigger, smaller, depending on which size spindle you put in. Then we're going to remove this spindle. Obviously, want to make sure that the tool is off, but once it's off, you can usually just hand loosen this and spin this out. If it is really tight, then we have these wrenches on the front. So you can grab 2 of the wrenches, and if it were really tight, you can put a 1 1/4 one on the bottom, like this. And this is a 1 1/8 one that goes on top, and you could use that to loosen it. I think most often you could just loosen it by hand though. Then we'll take this out. Now let's say you wanted to replace the sandpaper. It's a little bit different on some of the spindles, so we'll just look at this one first. Hopefully it just slides off nicely. This one here, we'll take this nut off the top to make it easier. And please don't lose that. And then this slides off, and there's a little rubber piece in the top. Also, please don't lose this. There is replacement sandpaper in the store. They aren't particularly cheap, unfortunately. You're welcome to bring your own if you would like, if you can find them cheaper. And I would also say that as with all power tools, you should not force it. So if the sandpaper is not cutting, then there's no sense in pushing it. You could do damage to the tool, and you're not gonna make much progress. You're probably gonna burn your workpiece. So I would recommend replacing it, even if it does cost you some money. So for this one, we put it back on, and then put this nut on. And this nut squeezes the piece of rubber, expanding it so that it holds the sandpaper on there nicely. We have a wrench down here. You can see all of our nicely labeled wrenches. So this wrench goes on here, and we use to tighten it so it's on there nice and snug. Each of these spindles has a home. So this is the 3/4 inch diameter spindle. That goes right here. This is the same as the 1 inch. The smaller ones are shorter and have a slightly different style. So I'll show you this one for the 1/2 inch, how this works. This just slides on. There's no nut on the top. There's just a little set screw here. So there's a wrench hanging on the front of the tool called the small spindle wrench. It's tied on so we don't lose it because it is very small. And you tighten it just like that. And now it's on there. So that's pretty easy. All right, so loosen that. Or actually, sorry, we'll leave that tight for the next person. And then I'll show you the bigger ones. The bigger ones are over on the right side. And the way that these work, fairly similar. We'll just grab the 1 1/2 inch. They just have a big nut on the top. So you unscrew this. Again, you could use the wrenches if it's really tight. You slide this off. Occasionally, this will be really stuck on there. And if that sandpaper is totally worn out and you're trying to replace it, you can see that this is a spiral and you can tear it off. And so if it's really stuck on there, you can't get it off, even after this nut has been loosened, and there's all that pressure is taken off the rubber. You can, once the sandpaper is worn out, you can just tear it off if you need to. But in general, it should just slide off nicely. You can throw it out. As a note, we only stock 1 grit of all the sizes in the store. Otherwise, we would have a huge number of sandpapers. I believe it's 120 or 150 grit, because that's sort of middle of the ground. Again, if you are doing a big project and you want a lower grit or a higher grit in a specific size, feel free to get that. So we'll install this. So I'm going to tighten this. Honestly, tightening it by hand is enough. It's not rotating. That's enough to squeeze the rubber. And drop this in here to make sure there's no dust or junk in there, or else it'll bind up. I don't want that. And just screw this in nicely. And hold the bottom, twist it, and that's on there. Then we're going to put the table insert on. I think this one might still be a good size for it. But let's just say, hypothetically, if it weren't, we have a bigger one here and a smaller one here. But I'm going to drop this back on, and you can see that this pin goes right in this hole, so it only goes on one way. And the reason that it has this oval shape to it is because the table tilts. So I'm gonna show you here, on each side are these handles. So if you loosen this, and loosen this on this side, then the whole table will tilt, just like that. And it'll show you the approximate angle. It's actually on this side. On the right side, you can see where it's showing that angle. So you can set it to whatever angle you want, and then it goes back to 0 when you tilt it back. So I'm just gonna tighten it back at 0. That's why it has that oval shape, so it can accommodate the tilting. And before we get started, we are going to make sure, it says right here, that the vacuum is on, and we already have a sanding sleeve. Here are the things that I grabbed from the trash bin to sand. This one is a little cut off, but you can see it has that interior curve here, and this also has some curves, so we can just, pretend that we're doing that. I'm gonna grab one more thing for demonstration that lives over here on the shelf with the sanders. And that is this rubber block. What this is for helping to refresh the sandpaper. So sometimes the sandpaper gets clogged up with dust, and then you can take it and use it. I'll show you to remove the sandpapers. That's pretty useful to get more life out of your sandpaper. When you're done, please put it back on the shelf with the sanders. All right, so we're gonna start by turning on the vacuum. This is connected to both of these sanders. The safety notes for this tool are really making sure not to get your fingers, sanded. It's not going to probably remove a finger, but it will remove skin. So make sure to hold things so that they don't get pinched. If I were to try to sand from this side, it would just jam into my finger, right? So I need to make sure to hold it so it's pulling away, like that. Also, this will grab if you have hair, or a necktie or a necklace or anything like that could get caught. It'll wrap up quickly and pull you right in. So you really need to make sure you have nothing dangling. It'll get caught up on this thing. It's spinning very fast. Obviously, when you're done with any tool, you make sure to put all the accessories away. We're gonna grab a vacuum and vacuum off the top to make sure it's nice and clean for the next person. Put away all the scraps. I'm gonna put this away over on the shelf over here. And in case you are not familiar with how vacuums work, I'm going to grab a vacuum, turn it on. Make sure that not just the tool, but the whole area around the tool is nice and clean for the next person. Thanks so much for watching.